Everything you know could vanish by tomorrow. The job you trust, the person you love, the plans you've built. What would be left of you then? If your peace disappears with circumstance, was it ever real? Let's find out what the Stoics knew that we've all forgotten. I used to believe that life could be managed, that if I worked hard enough, planned carefully enough, I could keep chaos at bay. But life has its own rhythm, and it doesn't dance to our commands. One morning, it only takes a single phone call, a sudden silence, a plan falling apart, and everything you thought was secure begins to tremble. That's when you learn the hardest truth of all. You control almost nothing. The Stoics called this realization the dichotomy of control, but I didn't understand it until life forced me to. I remember the day it broke me open. I woke up thinking the day would go as planned. Then, out of nowhere, everything I depended on, people, projects, certainty, slipped beyond my reach. I tried to fight it. I tried to force outcomes, fix things, make life behave. The more I tried, the more it resisted, until all that remained was exhaustion and fear. That night, I opened a small book I'd been ignoring on my shelf, the words of Epictetus. On the first page it said, "Some things are within our power, and some are not." It felt like a quiet blade cutting through the fog. Simple, almost cruelly simple, but true. I realized I had been living backwards, trying to control what wasn't mine while neglecting the one thing that was, my mind. It wasn't the storm that drowned me. It was my refusal to accept that it was raining. The more I fought for control, the less I had. The Stoics didn't promise that life would be easy. They promised that peace is possible, not by changing the world, but by mastering the way you meet it. Every moment is a choice. Resist what you cannot change or rise above it. When you stop trying to bend the world, you begin to find balance within it. That's when calm stops being something you chase and becomes something you create. So if you've felt overwhelmed lately, if your mind is full of noise, of endless effort to make life behave, pause for a second. Ask yourself, what if peace doesn't come from control at all, but from surrender? What if the only thing you've ever needed to master was yourself? If you find meaning in these words and want to explore more Stoic wisdom that helps you navigate life with strength and clarity, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us the motivation to keep creating stories that bring calm to chaos and purpose to every day. When I first read Epictetus, I didn't see philosophy, I saw survival. He lived as a slave, his freedom stripped away, yet his mind remained untouched. He said, "Some things are within our power, and some are not." At first, it sounded like surrender. But the more I lived, the more I saw it was strength. He wasn't teaching weakness. He was teaching clarity. Most people drown in confusion because they try to control the tide instead of learning to swim. I used to be one of them. Every disappointment felt like failure, every setback like injustice. But one day I realized my suffering wasn't caused by what happened to me, but by my refusal to accept that it did. The world will move how it wants. The only thing I command is my own mind. Epictetus found peace not by escaping fate, but by aligning with it. When I stopped fighting everything I couldn't change, I didn't lose power, I discovered it. Real power isn't control over others, it's calmness within yourself. It's looking at the storm and saying, "You may roar, but I remain." Seneca taught that most of our pain comes from the stories we tell ourselves about the future. "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," he wrote. I used to let my imagination punish me more than life ever did. I'd replay conversations, anticipate disasters, build worlds of fear in my head. Seneca's words forced me to confront that most of my battles weren't in the world, they were in my mind. So I began to practice something he called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. Each morning, I'd quietly imagine what could go wrong. A delay, a loss, a betrayal. Not to invite suffering, but to diffuse it. When it came, it no longer had power over me. I'd already met it once before in my thoughts, with reason as my guide. This habit didn't make me cold. It made me courageous. Because once you stop fearing what could happen, you start living in what is happening. That's how Seneca faced chaos with serenity, by knowing the worst and still choosing calm. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world far larger than mine, yet his struggles were no different. He ruled an empire that could crumble at any moment, but his greatest conquest was his own mind. "You have power over your mind, not outside events," he wrote. It became a mantra for me. Whenever life spun out of control, I repeated it until I believed it. He didn't pretend the world was kind, he simply refused to let it make him cruel. His strength wasn't in command but in composure. Even in war, betrayal, and loss, he chose discipline over despair. That's what Stoicism really is, not detachment, but devotion to what's right, even when nothing else makes sense. I try to live like Marcus now. When life feels overwhelming, I return to his words and focus on what I can control: my thoughts, my actions, my virtue. Everything else, I let pass like wind through open hands. Because the moment you stop demanding the world to be different, it becomes livable again. I began creating my own practice, a modern echo of their ancient wisdom. Each morning, before I face the noise, I sit in silence. I ask myself 3 questions. What is in my control today? What is not? And where will I place my energy? The answers are almost always the same: my choices, my discipline, my peace. That's all that's truly mine. I write it down like a promise. I control my thoughts and actions, nothing more. When stress rises, I breathe and return to that truth. The weather changes, people disappoint, plans collapse, but none of it owns me unless I let it. The world will keep spinning in its rhythm. People will praise, criticize, rise, and fall. I no longer chase their approval or fear their judgment. My peace doesn't depend on them. It depends on the wisdom to know what is mine and the grace to let go of what is not. And in that moment, I finally understand what Epictetus meant: freedom is not found in the world. It begins the moment you stop trying to control it.